Let's go.
Morning, Charlie. Another week, another dollar. How's things going on your side?
Morning, Grant. Things are really well. Just coming out of family recovery from some sort of flu. But it's been a good week. Had a big event last week, Friday, with Conscious Wi-Fi. It was great. And yeah, another week. Let's see what happens. Really excited for it.
So that's some sort of flu. Was it the big C? Or actually, the big C is not a flu, but the big vid. You've been watching vid with your family, I take it, eh?
Yeah, Grant. No, I don't know. Like we kind of just trust our bodies. We keep it super clean and healthy. So it came, it gone. You know, that's how we roll with it.
Yeah. And speaking about rolling, actually, how's that to bring it straight into where we are? I was chatting actually to one of the guys I used to train with, and we were talking a lot about BJJ training in those sort of Saturday afternoons. We used to do a lot of flow rolling, where you just kind of go. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, and you just kind of roll with each other. There's no force, there's no pain. It just becomes a movement between the athletes and that. And I was reading actually and doing some work this week, and one thing that you mentioned to me, which kept on sort of coming out when I was looking at, was this flow state.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, everything we do is actually just one flow. And the quicker we get into that movement or that flow, the better it is for us. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, flow state is such a spoken about concept. It's so out there. According to Jamie Wheeler and Stephen Kotler, they actually started a business years ago called the Flow Genome Project. Yeah, so Jamie Kotler and Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheeler, they started this organization called the Flow Genome Project, where they re-engineer or reverse engineer flow state. And they came to the conclusion that compared to other athletes, right, extreme athletes, athletes who put their lives at risk, in the X Games, and even professional fighters, have improved over the last 20 or 30 years by approximately 80% more than any other athletes, because of the element of danger, of the high risk of injury or even death. So they started to pay more attention to these extreme athletes and how they access these states of absolute presence and zero resistance, right? And I can relate to that. When I was fighting in the cage back then, even though there was a guy at the other end of the cage, trained to basically make you tap out, make you submit, and inflict pain and harm, there was a state of calm. There was a state of absolute calm, because there was no space to get in your head. There was no space to think things over, right? But in saying that, flow state is not something that I think we access too naturally. It comes from a lot of discipline. Being so disciplined in your craft that when it's time to show up, there's no resistance. A lot of people think of flow state as the state of just being totally relaxed. But there is a level of competence that needs to be reached, to be in flow, right? So flow comes from high levels of discipline. High levels of discipline allows you to be in that state of flow when the time comes.
So it brings it back, and I mean, and we laugh about it, but I mean, also when we trained and related back, probably because I've been having those discussions again about MMA and that, but you've heard your coach or your sensei tell you, drills develop skills.
That's it.
And it comes from that state of being totally confident within yourself, which I suppose, back to your point there, relates to the discipline and the work. When you're working now you're in a boardroom, now you're working with an exec. What are some of the skills, or what are some of the drills that you would give him or her
Yeah.
in order to work towards that flow state, because I can imagine that flow state in business is that total confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Grant, I don't think it's that complicated. It's basically content specific, right? So if it's in a boardroom and there is a presentation, if you are going to deliver a presentation, right? Know what you're talking about, right? And this is where the greats, if you look at people who get on stage and they are so calm and they just can captivate an audience and they can captivate a boardroom, right? That comes from hours and hours of going over their presentation, for example, right? Of really, like you said, drills develop skills, right? So if there's something that you're going to present, just know your stuff. Know your stuff. Communication is a big one, right? Like, so communication is a skill, right, in itself, and it's a skill that can be practiced. It's a skill that can be practiced, right? And there's so much that goes into communication, but like I said, it's all content specific. In the cage, you need to know, or if you're a motocross guy, these guys, it's practice, practice, practice. Discipline is the absolute key, to flow.
And I mean, you talk about it, and it's so bloody obvious when you say it. It's the practice, it's the discipline. When you're training for a fight, or when you're training for a high impact sport, you're spending hours and hours actually preparing yourself to go into the cage, walk down.
Yeah.
You listen. You've got your song. You walk out. You've got your team. You've got your rituals and things like that. I'm wondering, on a day-to-day basis in a business, are your clients, or do you see people actually taking that time out to prepare those rituals? Or do we just kind of work day to day?
You know what? Like, a lot of people work day to day, when they kind of caught up in a rat race scenario, and I see it as a lack of passion, right? When someone's not, enjoying what they're doing, then it's very easy to just do the bare minimum, right? And I see that, so it's finding that passion within what it is you do, even if what you do, right, is not necessarily your passion, you can still bring a passion about how you do it and how good you do it. And I think that's a link that I see can be made. If someone's not particularly enjoying sales, they can then develop a passion within that framework, passion for communication, passion for impacting people in the vehicle of sales or whatever it is that they're doing.
And we talk about passion, and I remember, and I'm not sure when it was, but it came up a lot and things like that. We spoke about your passion frequency,
yeah,
and building that passion out. And I agree 110%. Without that passion and that, and a lot of, and including myself, would attach passion to emotion, which it often will cause or create. But creating and being able to control those states is something, obviously, that we work on really hard, and making sure that we get that correct. But also, in recent readings I was doing with regards to passion, it's not the way that you have to have a passion necessarily, or your why has to be related directly in your job. And I think that we call it the Great Resignation at the moment. I'm shocked to see how many people are kicking back against the system with regards to going into work, with regards to work from home, life skills, work-life balance, and all that in the great and following their passion. I'm interested to get your views on actually following your passion versus actually your reason why.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Like, when you mentioned the passion frequency, right? Passion it's a state of being, right? There's a feeling inside of you. If you are passionate about something, it's the way you feel about it. But it's something that can be accessed, right? It's something that can be accessed because we're free, right? We can assign meaning to things, whatever meaning we want. And passion is basically the energy of excitement, right? If you're passionate about something, you're excited about it. So there are ways, by controlling your state and asking yourself certain questions about whatever it is you're about to do, to get excited about it, right? But I think on the greater scheme of things, when you mentioned like this kickback against the system, when people are kind of now like, resigning, literally resigning from their jobs to go and do what they love doing, even if it means giving up a massive salary to go just get by, but doing something they love. I think there is something to be noted there. People are like, realizing the value of actually living a life that they love instead of constantly chasing something, having all the money, but doing what with it? When their health, their mental health, their emotional health, inside they're just not happy human beings. I think Gary Vaynerchuk says it beautifully. He's like, the number one thing to chase is your own happiness, right? And it's a big topic. There's lots to be said in it. Because people's values, come into play now. And I think in the corporate space, it might be a difficult thing if you're a business owner. You might have someone that's really good at the job, but they just don't like it, and there they go.
It is crazy, and I mean, again, it's out there. As I say, they talk about the Great Resign, and I'm battling with the concept of, and I've always been someone that's always followed his passion and followed what I've kind of done whatever I wanted to do, but I've always had my family as my security blanket. My amazing wife has always kept me grounded and always made sure that even when I'm out and venturing on these crazy, setting up cage fighting events, doing all these wonderful things, traveling the world fighting that I've been managed to do, I've always known that sense. And my fear for people going out there, and I suppose it's not really my fear to have, but is, entrepreneurship, or what they following your passion and making money, is really, really tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I worry for our economy and for our mental health there. That's 6 months to a year again, the stats are quite clear. A business hasn't made it till it's gone through its 7-year cycle. 7 years is a long time in business. I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that we're going to be looking at this really unhappy state of nation soon.
Yeah, it's a crazy topic, Grant. Like, I mean, there's a lot of, there's the entrepreneurs, but then there's the wantrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the topic. People who think it's easy. I'm going to start my own thing, because the internet, and
It's
they
popular.
realize
Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur at the moment.
100%, Grant, and including me. Like, I left a career in cage fighting in 2014 after having a steady job for 7 years. Then I went in, become a professional athlete, which was my first step towards being an entrepreneur. But I was still working for an organization. I was fighting under the EFC banner, and they basically did everything. I didn't realize. I just had to show up and do my job. Then in 2014, when I retired, in 2015, I started my own coaching business. And granted, it was incredibly tough. There were so many moments where I had given up. And if it wasn't for the discipline that I'd learned as a professional athlete, I don't think there's any way I would have made it. And I have such a massive respect for any business owner who is in business. Right? I don't think people, and I know a lot of people don't know what that takes. That's why, yes, there's a lot of people who think, no, I'm going to start my own thing, but they have no idea what it takes to actually build a self-sustaining entity that can function, where you come in as a But at the end of the day, you know, keeping the doors open is not actually your responsibility. You know, it's the owners, it's the CEOs, the CFOs, and the, you know, it's the people who are actually have skin in the game, you know, and massive respect. Anyone, you know, in the beginning, I was like, kind of, you know, there was judgment in the corporate space, you know, from me. I was like, you know, businesses, you know, it's big tech and there's no heart. But then I realized, man, it takes something incredible to really build a proper business. And like, if I can just put a word of advice out there, you know, for anyone who thinks it's easy, right? It might be. Some people might get lucky. I don't know, but it takes big kahunas, man. It takes a big heart. It takes a massive heart, you know, to create something that can sustain other human beings, you know, and it can add service to the world. But it's, in saying that, it's probably one of the most exciting things that I've ever done, and growth like nobody's business.
100%. And I smile because I agree 100%. 110%. It's, for me, there's no better feeling in the world. It's hard. It really is hard. A lot of the time you know, you want to crawl up and cry. But again, I think also your and from my personal my discipline that I learned from my martial arts experience, I'll take it. Or maybe it's from my earlier life, I'm not sure. But has managed me, has helped me to get through so many of those, and we've spoken before, those uncomfortable situations where, you know, if I look back over, I've been in business by myself since 2002. You know, there have been, sure, many months where I wasn't sure where I was going to get the funds to pay the staff to do this. And I know it's an ongoing concern and worry, and again, it comes back down to discipline and understanding your function and being. I also think, you know, what's happened a lot these days is this, and we talk about the Great Resignation, but we also talk about, you know, this awareness that's coming through the world. Everyone's aware of everything.
Yes.
And with this sort of movement to entrepreneurship, I think it makes people more aware of what it takes to run a business, what it takes to actually get that business, that customer, that check in, that paycheck out.
Yeah.
And perhaps after the Great Resign, when people do come back, because I do believe people will come back, you know, and hopefully not too broken, because it's, you know, without failure, we don't learn.
Yes.
There'll be a huge movement into a lot of these new businesses with people that have learnt the lessons of failing in a business, and they'll have that passion to make sure that their new business venture, or their new business that they're part of, succeeds and makes an impact going forward.
Grant, I agree with you. You know, when you look at nature, you know, nature always seeks its highest expression, you know, and we are part of nature. We're all natural beings. So I think, you know, evolution, if you look at history, everything always seems to work out for the best. Everything always seems to work out, you know. So a lot of people are panicking, you know, because there's so much happening in the world. You know, we've had COVID, and now there's this, people are questioning their lives and, you know, maybe deciding to follow their passion and rediscovering themselves in the process and realizing maybe this isn't for me, and then coming back into a corporate space, into a job. But like you said, then maybe bringing in more awareness of like what it actually takes, more respect for those who built the business, and then coming in with a state of greater awareness and greater presence and greater productivity and of greater service then, you know. So I think everything always plays out perfectly, you know, and we don't always see it, you know, when we're in the midst of the chaos. But I do believe, like I said, nature always seeks its highest expression. The universe always seeks balance. And whatever imbalances we are witnessing now is just part of a greater balancing act.
I love that, Charlie. And I think that's a great place to end off today's chat. that balance will be restored. We'll grow as humans and as a part of this universe. And I'm really excited for the future. And I think out of this sort of journey that we're going on, making an impact in people's lives, people are going to gain and grow. So I think up until next week, let's sign off. And thanks very much for your time, Charlie. And we'll
Awesome.
chat to you next week.
Grant, it was a great chat once again. And I'm looking forward to the next one. I think we're just scratching the surface and covering some cool topics. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on the chat again.
Awesome, Charlie. See you later.
Cheers, brother.